Mr. McCall?
Yeah.
Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Welcome. You're gonna handle it? Yeah.
Yeah, it should be halfway cooked today.
So are you a lifer in Joliet?
Well, I don't want to be put on a charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it.
You're still in charge.
Oh, okay.
You're always in charge, Ed.
That's a scary thought.
Where's Chuck?
Couldn't be anybody better though, Eddie.
I don't know. Yeah, he was gonna spend some time in Arizona this summer, so I don't know.
You ready? Okay, the meeting will please come to order. This is a duly advertised meeting of the Joliet Zoning Board of Appeals. In our capacity, we hear petitions for relief from the strict provisions of the city ordinance. In matters of this type, the decision of this board is final. Respect, it does not go to the mayor or the city council for any further action. If you disagree with our decision, you do have recourse in a court of record. We also hear petitions for variations of land use. In matters of this type, we act as an advisory board to the mayor and city council, making a recommendation either for or against the petition. Final decision on land use is made by the mayor and the city council. Secretary, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ferguson,
Here.
Mr. Graham, Mr. McCauley,
Here.
Ms. Powers,
Here.
Mr. Riggs,
Here.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Hennessy.
I just called you. You're here.
Here.
Mr. Chair, the first item on our agenda after roll call is the approval of the minutes. It would be in order for a motion to approve the June 21st, 2018 zoning board of appeals minutes.
Okay, motion would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for last meeting. Call the roll.
Mr. Ferguson,
Here. Aye.
Mr. McCauley,
Aye.
Ms. Powers,
Hi.
Mr. Riggs,
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda, item 4, is citizens to be heard on agenda items. This section is for anyone wanting to speak regarding items that are listed on the agenda, except for those items that are listed under public hearing. And I think most of the petitions we have today are listed as public hearings. Anyone wishing to speak on an agenda item is entitled to speak for a maximum of 4 minutes. It is not a question and answer period, and the staff and the zoning board of appeals do not generally respond to those public comments. But please note, speakers who engage in conduct injurious to the harmony of the zoning board of appeals shall be called to order by the presiding officer and may forfeit the opportunity to speak. Is there anyone here wishing to provide general public comments?
Okay, let's proceed then.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is new business public hearings, and the first petition is petition 2018-30, which is a series of variations to allow construction of a future automobile fueling station located at 408 Collins Street.
Petitioners present. Want to come forward? Go ahead and read.
Swear them in?
Hmm?
You want to?
Do you swear the evidence you're about presents the truth under penalty of law?
I do. Yes, Nathan Hanson, attorney representing the applicant, will now have the staff report.
We will summarize the staff report. The applicant here for petition 2018-30 is BSTP Midwest LLC. Owner of the property is a combination of parties, including Gregory Bolden, Amador and Edelmira Jimenez, and Octavio and Martina Cardenas. Location is 408 Collins Street. This is a request for a series of variations to allow construction of a future automobile fueling station. You can put that slide up there. The petitioner is requesting a series of variations to allow construction of a future automobile fueling station to be located at 408 Collins Street. The zoning board makes the final decision for these variation requests. Variations requested include 1, the ZBA makes the final decision. Number 1 is major street setback. The major street setback reduction from 80 feet from center line of Collins Street to 75.8 feet from center line. Reduction, variance 2 is a rear yard setback reduction from 25 feet to 15.6 feet. Number 3, perimeter landscape buffer reduction from 15 feet to 10 feet along the northwest corner of the north side and west side. Interior landscape island minimum size reduction from 8 feet minimum width to 3.5 feet minimum width. Off-street loading space, reduction of the requirement to not have the loading space. I believe there's proposal to, they would just use the smaller trucks delivering on the site itself in the parking area. The last one is a reduction of the automobile service station setback, and that is from 100 feet from a public or institutional use down to 63 feet. Under site-specific information, the subject site currently includes 5 parcels for a total of 1.36 acres with 280 linear feet of frontage along Collins Street and 204 linear feet of frontage along Jackson Street. The Plan Commission will hear requests this afternoon for approval of a preliminary plat of subdivision to consolidate these 5 lots into 1 lot, and approval of the rezoning class or the zoning reclassifications for 3 parcels from the R2 single family residential to the B3 general business district, and approval of alley vacations at their meeting again this afternoon at 4 p.m. The 5 parcels include vacant land, 2 circa 1910 single family houses, and 1 circa 1851 3-unit house. Surrounding zoning, land use, and character, to the north is zoned B3 general business and R2 single family residential, the currently vacant land and residential uses. To the south is zone B3 general business and B1 neighborhood business, and that is currently occupied by a gas station as well as residential. And to the east is R-2 single family residential, and that is used presently for residential. And to the west is B1 neighborhood business, presently used for both commercial and residential uses. Applicable regulations are noted in the staff report, including major street setbacks, rear yards, off-street loading, perimeter landscape buffer, interior landscape island minimum size, and the section that pertains to garage and automobile service stations, as well as this section pertaining to the findings of fact that support a variation. Discussion, again, BSTP Midwest is the contract purchaser. They're requesting the approvals in order to develop a future gas station that will have 4,400 square foot convenience store with parking for 24 vehicles and a 5,360 square foot canopy that can accommodate the fueling of 20 vehicles. A concept plan is attached, a concept site plan. The applicant's reasoning for requesting the variations is also included as an attachment to your staff report. The canopy of the proposed fueling area has a setback of 75.8 feet from the center line of Collins Street, and the zoning ordinance requires a setback of 80 feet from the center line of any road that's designated as a major or minor arterial on the official street classification map. Collins Street and Jackson Street are both minor arterials. The canopy does meet the center line setback requirement from Jackson Street. The convenience store is situated 15.6 feet from the rear lot line, and the zoning ordinance requires a rear yard setback of 25 feet when a general business district abuts a residential zone. The location of the proposed convenience store also does not meet the city's separation distance from a public or institutional use, which requires a 100-foot separation. Redeemed Church of God in Christ at 410 East Clay Street is located approximately 63 feet from the convenience store. The applicant has also requested 2 variations from the city's landscape and screening regulations. The first is a variation that the required 15-foot perimeter landscape buffer on the northwest corner of the north side and the west side be reduced from 15 to 10 feet. The zoning ordinance requires the landscaped area of at least 15 feet when the perimeter of the lot abuts non-residential use, or when a non-residential use abuts property zoned for a residential use. The proposed site plan meets the perimeter landscape buffer in all other areas. The second is a variation from the required minimum 8-foot width of an interior landscape island. The proposed landscape island, I believe is noted there on the screen, is approximately 3.5 feet wide at the sidewalk, and I think might be pointing, hopefully it's pointing in the right direction there on the screen, let's see. However, it does flare out to a 9-foot wide at its end. The applicant has also requested a variation from the city's off-street loading requirements, which requires one off-street loading space for a commercial building of 20,000 square feet or more of, or less, I should say, of gross floor area. The proposed site plan does not include an off-street loading space. The exterior of the proposed buildings will have to meet the city's non-residential design standards, which require the use of 100% masonry materials on the exterior of the facade, and landscaping will need to be installed that meets the requirements of the city's landscape and screening ordinance. The applicant has indicated that they will wrap the piers of the canopy in a masonry material that matches the convenience store, as well as wrap the pylons of the proposed ground signs. Access into the gas station will consist of a right-in, right-out ingress and egress along Jackson Street and Collins Street, and a full access along East Clay Street. The proposed use is consistent with the existent and emerging land uses along Collins Street. And if this if the application and petition is approved, two of the conditions that would apply include: one, that the piers of the fueling canopy be wrapped in masonry that matches the masonry used on the facade of the convenience store, and two, that the pylons of any proposed ground signs be wrapped in masonry that matches the masonry used on the facade of the convenience store. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you. You've already been sworn in.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mike Hanson again representing the applicant. If I could add a couple things to the report. Number one is we agree with the conditions that the staff would like to impose on us. We work with the staff to make certain that we have adequate screening, fencing, that everything conforms as much as possible to all city ordinances. We expect this, it's not necessarily cut in stone, but we expect this to be a Thornton's gas station. That's who my client is targeting at this point in time. They're in that type of business.
Have you signed a contract with them yet? Or?
Not yet, no, but they're working with them.
Do you have any other options?
Oh yes, there are other similar named, large, well-known gas stations will end up being the actual gas station. And then lastly, it's expected that this gas station is going to produce about $350,000 annually in sales, property taxes, et cetera, and additional tax revenue to the city of Joliet. It's going to provide needed additional 20 to 25 employees on the east side of Joliet, and it's a great economic benefit to the east side of town. With that, I'll entertain any questions.
Yeah, I see that you're talking about maybe 20 vehicles.
Yes.
That would be what, 10 pumps?
Correct.
Would it be
That's the normal-
economically feasible for you to diminish that at all, or would that cut into your reasonable return?
You answered your own question, Your Honor.
It will, huh?
Yes.
Okay. And for the staff, what kind of, we're talking about buffering zones. What exactly kind of buffering have you got there between there and the residential?
Well, they're requesting the reduction of the yard, but I believe the plant material would be the similar quantity, the typical shrubs, trees.
Are we talking that'll
Fencing.
totally block out the view of the
And
gas
fencing.
station, or?
I'm sorry?
Is it going to totally block the view of the gas station, or are we talking just about a fence or something?
There would be a fence required, and it won't block out the fence will not be as high as the back wall of the gas station building.
6-foot high fence in conformance with the city.
And
course.
any vegetation back
Typical,
there?
yeah, landscaping would be located in the back of the store.
But the landscaping won't be higher than the fence?
Some of the trees would be higher than
Yes.
the fence.
Okay, because I want some screening back there.
I think that.
They would comply,
Yeah,
they're not
we're in
asking for any
compliance with the
relief.
city ordinance with respect to screening, Your Honor, and yeah, and so that's what we've proposed. We want to make sure that we do have adequate screening with respect to the residential area there.
I noticed that there's an old house there that it doesn't have, I don't think, any historical ranking. That's not on the historical list.
No, it is not. We did a report, we did a report on that early on in the project and found out it wouldn't be eligible for the National Historic Register. And there's been a number of changes made to that house over the years. We are gonna donate the limestone to someone here in Will County who can reuse that limestone and preserve it, so.
If I'm not mistaken, that was at one time Macaulay's homestead.
Yeah, that and the big farmhouse directly to the east of that. And I was gonna ask a question. Once the limestone house is gone in the back of this building here, it's not gonna be I mean, it's not gonna interfere with that house to the east, is it?
No.
I mean, they're not gonna be annoyed by it, are they?
No, that's not part of the plan, no.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there's any historic value other than my
Well,
dad.
that
My
would be
dad
your
was
family,
born in
no.
my dad was born in that little room right over there.
Well, you shouldn't feel bad, Chuck. When I was on the city council at 127 Comstock Street, which was the home of my grandfather and my dad, who were both mayors, I had to make the motion to tear that house down. And I wanted it to be bronze and made into a shrine of some kind, but nobody wanted to agree with me, so
Well, that's
down
why you're
it went.
disowned now. But anyway,
You've gotten your name on a street sign, so.
On several streets.
I have
Any
a
further questions by the
I
board?
do have a question. Are you working with the gas station that's to your south? I mean, this seems like it's gonna be in direct competition with one. Is there a gas station to this? I mean, that's what
There
it's
is a
looking
gas
at.
station across the street on the south east corner, yes.
And that's,
We're not working with them, if you will. I mean, we can't
Yeah.
work with them legally. It's, there's gonna be competition, yes.
there will be.
Hopefully that will help the entire area.
Yeah, that's a question of marketing, that's right.
We can't address that.
Any other questions by the board? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Want to come forward? I must swear you in. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Your name and address.
Mary Beth Gannon, 903 Western Avenue. I'm a local historian and a 7th generation Jolietan. Joliet has been called many things over the years. City of Champions, City of Stone and Steel. I'm here right now to champion for the George Washington Cassidy and Delilah Murphy Cassidy Mansion. And that is what it was when it was built in 1851. Even in 1925, this house was recognized as a, quote, aristocrat among mansions. The late great Adelphi Williams, a columnist and artist with Joliet Herald News, wrote about this house. It had many social gatherings there over the years. Delilah Murphy Cassidy was active in the Methodist Episcopal Church. 181 years ago, George Washington Cassidy had enough vision to see the potential in Joliet. That potential was actualized with the purchase of 80 acres from the U.S. government. That area is now known as Cassidy Addition. I have been in touch with George Washington Cassidy's descendants, several of them, and they're really upset about this house being potentially demolished. They also let me know that Mr. Cassidy was directly related to Sam Houston of Houston, Texas. Mr. Cassidy was also proprietor of Oakwood Cemetery, along with other fellow Joliet founding fathers, Francis Cagle, Daniel Young. There are already gas stations nearby. And I know that council has done their supposed research on the historical value of this house, but even in the most rudimentary of research, you would have found that Mr. Cassidy had ties to Abraham Lincoln and personally knew him. This house is worth saving. I'd like to leave you with one last quote. A doctor can bury his mistakes, but an architect can only advise his clients to plant vines for the community. And that quote's from Frank Lloyd Wright, and I think it's rather apt for the situation. Thank you for your time and
Have you and your group any plans at all to how to salvage the house?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I have been talking to some of the residents who live near it, and they were not aware of the history of the house until recently. And there's interest in maybe it could be turned into a community center. There could be law offices downstairs with apartments upstairs. And it's being so much in proximity to the prison, perhaps there could be a prison gift shop there. There are possibilities.
Who owns the house?
I presume council's client.
Greg Bowen.
That he does own the house.
Yeah, they've already purchased.
And the other thing I wanted to mention, but I forgot, is if you think about all the 2-story limestone houses in town, I can only think of 8 of them. We are the city of stone. We have a lot of clapboard around town, but we have very few 2-story limestone houses.
Well, I concur with what you're saying, but having been around Joliet in politics, anything for over 50 years, I know a lot of historical houses, when it came time to move them, or they were moved or something. Now you're waiting to the very last minute after the property's already been purchased, plans have been made, and you're coming in and asking someone else to preserve the property. Shouldn't your group have been working on this long ago?
Well, I'm not here in my official capacity, but I am a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, and the mayor has not come to us yet. And with local landmarks, the owner has to want that type of status. We can't just force it on them.
Unfortunately, we can't stop the owner from selling it, and
But we could
we have
stop
no
that
power
zoning.
to block it, so
We could want something better than a gas station there.
sure you could. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Do you have any comments you'd like to make, sir? Oh, you got someone else? Fine, come forward, I'm sorry. I'll swear you in. Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
Speak into the microphone, please.
My name is
Name and address?
My name is Candace Johnson, 373 Western Avenue. I am partially in opposition of tearing down the house itself, not in opposition of them having a gas station on the corner. In my mind, there could be 2 different variances in that aspect. The house does hold historical significance, but my other concern would be the traffic congestion. As far as I'm aware, I'm a co-president of St. John's Neighborhood. We work with other neighborhood organizations in our area. The Collins Street Neighborhood Organization asked for a traffic report for Jackson Street. It is a very dangerous street. It's already sharp corners in that area. And as far as I'm aware, no actual traffic report has been done to signify what is already there versus what an impact adding this gas station in would make on the neighborhood. So I'm kind of requesting, I don't know how to go about requesting it, that a traffic report actually be done before anything is approved for this gas station. It would be a big hindrance on the neighborhood if one was not done before things were approved. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Hanson, I assume you did some marketing on this. Was there a traffic count taken?
Yes, Your Honor. We actually have a traffic study. We've done this traffic study.
Has that been submitted to the city? It's on file?
That's exactly what I was going to say next. They've reviewed this, staff has reviewed the report,
That's fine, thank
found
you.
it to be in accordance with no issues once this gas station gets going. I think you hit the nail on the head, Your Honor, earlier with Ms. Gannon when you indicated the fact that this home, if it was really of historic value, where has everybody been over all these years to try and protect it? The fact that this house cannot be on the National Historic Register is because the inside and the outside have been changed over the years and it won't qualify. You know, we would love to be if it could be moved, you know, we're certainly open to that, but it's a matter of cost, okay? The city has come to us, they're trying to see if they can come up with a solution. We would be interested in assisting that in some way, but as at this point in time, it just has not been able to be done, so.
All right, thank you. With that, I'm going to close petition to the floor, ask the board for any discussion and a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a second? Is there a second? Third call for a second to approve the motion. Okay, motion to deny would be in order.
I'll move to deny this. I'm not on the historical preservation thing. I agree with you, Mr. Hennessy, that something should have been done sooner about it. But there's quite a few variations here, and, yeah, I'm gonna move
Do
to
you
the
want to go
next.
through the variations individually and talk about them?
I think we've discussed some of them. One that I actually am concerned about is the off-street loading.
Why is that necessary?
To keep parking spots open, is that correct? I mean, to have more parking within the parking lot to serve more customers, that's what I'm understanding?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask Mike McKinnon, our engineer, to come up here and see if he can explain better than I can on the off-street loading situation here.
Yeah, explain to the board, you know, what the purpose of the off-street loading thing would be, and how big of an impact that would be if it weren't there. Well, Ms. Swear you in? Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Name and address.
My name's Mike McKinnon, 26W490 Churchill Road, Winfield.
Well, speak into the mic, sir. We have to record it.
I bring it up. I'm with BSTP in Midwest, the applicant. So for fueling centers in general, they use box trucks. We don't use like an Aldi would use for a semi-trailer truck. So the two deliveries you're going to have are obviously fuel, and obviously the fuel is up on the north side of the site. It's the rectangular area. That's a dedicated delivery space by itself. And the other place that fuel trucks fuel would actually be along the curb line along Collins Street. The box trucks, they pull up there, they do their deliveries into the store, and then they leave. And they typically are doing that before the morning rush hour. So to have a formal loading zone, we haven't done one for many, many years in the Chicago area.
Well, that's kind of my point, is that all of these things that are city ordinances are general rules and not specific to anything, and that the purpose of this board is to grant relief to those petitions. So unless there's a serious, egregious problem with not having it, it doesn't constitute a problem.
Right, so even if we have our box truck, you know, there's 36 feet between the pump and the curb line along Collins Street. There's still a 24-foot drive aisle for two-way traffic to pass them.
So the lack of that wouldn't have any impact on the operation at all?
Correct. There'd be no impact to the public or our on-site patrons.
And it's not a general rule even to include that anymore?
What's that?
That's not their general rule.
It's not your general rule, or is that an industry rule?
It's industry. You know, whether it's Thornton's, us, Circle K, you know, just the fact of the loads.
Depending on what, the location or the?
Just in general, it's
general?
It's just not. It's not a requirement as what as what it used to be.
But it is here. It is here. Can I ask a question about another variation, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'm just asking the reasoning behind the 100-foot setback from the church. Why is that? Why is it 100 feet? What is the reasoning behind that setback?
There are other examples in the zoning ordinance where at some point in time, the council made a policy decision, or maybe the zoning board, you know, the zoning ordinance was amended at such point in time because of some issue that they wanted to make sure there was adequate separation, maybe the influence of that use. Trying to think of the other example in our code. What's the other one that requires a 100-foot setback? There's another, like, for example, tattoo parlors, tattoo shops. It was written in that they also have a 100-foot separation from.
They're written in there
from sensitive
to serve
uses.
a purpose that if they're needed at a time for some objectionable thing that might be there. So it's really just a general rule that isn't always specific to any particular location. Go
If I
ahead.
may. So the convenience store is the use that is within the 100 feet. It's actually it's 63 feet from the convenience store to the church lot. And that, you know, convenience store is general retail, you know, selling soda pop, hot dogs, which isn't a permitted use, and that variance, if it wasn't a fuel center, would not apply. It's 172 feet from the church property to where the actual fueling operations are taking place.
But not to actually where you're loading, right? That's, I mean, where you're servicing the gas pumps, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. The gas pump's 172 feet.
Right,
from
but
the church.
where you're gonna be filling the gas pumps, didn't you say that was?
They're north. It's the same 172 feet. It's on the same plane.
guess I'm not seeing that on this thing. Is there a way we can make this?
The underground tanks are in the northwest corner of our site, so top left of our property.
Okay, all right, I see. Okay,
Anything else?
not for me.
Your Honor, since there appears to be questions from the commission, specifically Ms. Powers, concerning these variations, I'm going to make a request that we table this matter till the next month, and then we'll work with staff on these variations and see if we can come up with anything
Yeah, if
different.
need be, we can then,
Revisit?
you know, instead of voting on these as a block, we could vote on them individually and go have more
Whichever you
detail.
prefer, but we'll take that, we'd rather continue it to the next month, work with staff and see what we can come up different.
A motion would be in order to table to the next meeting.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to table to the next scheduled meeting, which will be the third Thursday of next month.
Correct.
Call the roll.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye.
Thank you for that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the agenda is petition number 2018-31, which is a variation request to allow an off-premise sign located at 8601 Caton Farm Road.
Is the petitioner here for this? Yes, Your Honor. Okay. Go ahead, proceed.
So to summarize the staff report, this is petition number 2018-31. The applicant is D.R. Horton Incorporated, which is the prospective leasee. The owner of the property is Bennett and Book Family Limited Partnership. Again, 8601 Caton Farm Road. The petitioner is requesting an off-premise sign for the marketing of new homes in the Windsor Ridge subdivision to be located near 8601 Caton Farm Road. The zoning board makes the final decision for these types of variation requests. Under site-specific information, the subject site is agricultural land that is 81 acres in size. The property was annexed in 2005 and is zoned R1B. The land has not been developed. Surrounding zoning, land use, and character to the north is unincorporated Kendall County, which is used for agriculture. To the south is R-4 multifamily residential, currently residential, and that's the Graywall Club subdivision. To the east is R4 multifamily residential, and that is agricultural presently. And to the west is RB restricted business, and R1B single family, and that is currently agricultural. Applicable regulations, the section pertaining to signs, and the definition for outdoor advertising signs. And also there are the standard criteria for sign variations. Under discussion, the petitioner, D.R. Horton Incorporated, is a local home builder who wishes to draw more attention to their home lots that are available at the Windsor Ridge subdivision, which is located at the southwest of the subject site off of Arbiter Road. The petitioner's reasoning for their request is attached to your staff report. The proposed off-premise sign would be placed approximately 520 feet east from the intersection of Arbiter Road and Caton Farm Road, and set 10 feet inwards from the property line in front of some trees. The sign will be 115 square feet in size and 14 feet high. The petitioner has indicated that they would place a 2-foot 6-inch by 10-foot lattice panel along the bottom to hide the posts. The proposed sign plan is attached as Exhibit A. The petitioner has also submitted the lease, which would allow them to place an off-premise sign on the site. And if the zoning board desires to approve the variation request, the following conditions would be considered. One, that the off-premise sign on the subject site be permitted for a 2-year period expiring on August 16th of 2020. The off-premise sign shall be removed no later than 30 days from the approval date. And 2, that the base of the off-premise sign will be wrapped with a 2-foot 6-inch by 10-foot lattice panel. And that concludes staff's report.
Petitioner? Do you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Name and address.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Steve Bauer. I'm an attorney with Meltzer, Patel & Stell. My address is 300 South Wacker Drive, Suite 2300, Chicago. As staff indicated, I'm here on behalf of DR Horton Inc. Midwest as the petitioner for the requested off-premises sign. The request before you today is for a variation as staff has identified to allow this off-premises sign at a location that is approximately a half-mile north of the Windsor Ridge subdivision in which the applicant is currently constructing townhome units. There are 22 townhome units currently under construction. Those are anticipated to be completed within approximately the next 30 to 45 days. So the applicant is fully invested in the community, in the Windsor Ridge community, and the city as a whole. The purpose of this request is to correct sluggish sales activity that the applicant has experienced over the past approximately 4 months that it's been marketing these units. Just by way of comparison, we'd ask the board to consider that in a community with comparable product to that marketed by the petitioner and a comparable nature in terms of the community as a whole, like Windsor Ridge, the petitioner is accustomed to selling approximately 2 to 3 sales per month, which would equate to approximately 8 to 12 units. To date, it has sold only 3. So I think that is fairly significant in sort of understanding the context in which the request is being made. The request is for a limited duration of not to exceed 2 years. And so obviously the sign would exist for that limited duration and not, it's not contemplated to exist beyond the sales period during which these units would be marketed and sold. We have reviewed the staff report. We don't have any concerns with respect to the conditions that have been identified. With the board's consideration, we would respectfully request that the expiration date of August 16th, 2020 be moved by perhaps 2 weeks just to afford the applicant an opportunity to have the sign fabricated and then installed, and then have the 2-year duration run from the date of installation. By comparison, for example, it could also be identified as being the date that the building permit is, or sign permit rather, is issued for the installation of the sign. But again, the intention would simply be to afford the applicant to capture the full 2-year sales period. And in any event, if you'd like to add a condition, for example, that would require the sign to come down upon completion or upon sale of all of the units, even if that's prior to 2 years, we're equally, as you could imagine, agreeable to that. So with that, I would respectfully request your approval. I do want to say that I understand this condition, or this request rather, to be consistent with requests that have been brought before the city in the past, and especially with that, and as part of the consideration, would ask for your approval.
Thank you. Any comments by the board? This is pretty routine.
Mr. Chair?
No comments? Anybody in the audience?
I was just going to say staff would support council's suggestion that if you're open to it, changing the date from August 20th, 2020 to simply stating that the 2-year period beginning from the date of the sign permit being issued. And then also
When was that issued?
Yes.
It hasn't been. So for the 2 years would trigger the,
Okay.
would be the clock would start.
By the board?
And then the third, we would also support the third condition be added regarding that the sign be removed, if the completion of build out of the subdivision occurs prior to that date, that the sign be removed at that time.
Do we need a bond for that or anything?
I don't believe we do.
Okay. Any objections by the board to any of those conditions? Anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor? Is anyone opposed? Chair closes the petition at the floor and asks the board for discussion and a motion.
I'll move to approve with the conditions, the 2-year condition, and when it's built out, to remove the sign.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the petition. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Briggs?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Petition 2018-32, Catherine Beavers. Anyone here present? Okay.
So petition 2018-32, that's a variation of use to allow continuation of a 2-unit, which is in R-3 1 and 2 family use in an R-2 single family zoning district located at 117 through 119 Southeastern Avenue. The applicant is Catherine and Lawrence Beavers. They are also the owners of the property. The applicant is requesting the variation of use to allow continuation of a 2-unit in an R2 single-family zoning district. The variation of use request must be considered by the City Council following the recommendation of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Under site-specific information, this is a 2-story building that sits on an 8,080 square foot lot. The property owners also own the 2 adjacent parcels to the rear for a total of approximately 12,100 square feet. According to the Sanborn Fire Insurance Map of 1898, the building was constructed prior to 1898 as a single-family home. According to the 1930 Polk Street Directory, the home contained 2 households. The 1956 land use map shows the property as a 2-unit, and the 1965 city zoning map shows that the property was classified as R-4, which was at that time 1 to 6 family residential. Sometime after this, the property was rezoned to R-3, which is the city's current classification for 2-unit homes. In 1995, the property was downzoned to R-2 single-family residential. Under surrounding zoning, land use, and character, to the north, south, and east is R-2 single-family residential. Also to the east is a small portion of R-3, which is 1 and 2 family residential. And to the west is I-1 light industrial. Applicable regulations include permitted principal uses in the R2 district, prohibited uses, and variation of use. Under discussion, the petitioner purchased the property in March of 2018, believing the building to be a lawful 2-unit building. The building was built as a single-family home prior to 1898. However, it was used as a 2-unit as early as 1930. City zoning also designated this property as a multifamily dwelling until 1995, when it was reclassified to R-2, single family, as were many of the properties in the area as part of an effort to align the zoning district with the existing and desired land use for this area. Currently, the surrounding land uses in this neighborhood also consist of homes that were originally built as single-family homes, but have since converted to 2-unit homes. A recent site inspection confirms that the building consists of 2 separate housing units with separate entrances and separate utilities, and appears to have been a 2-unit for several decades. However, the partitions that divide the 2 units can be easily removed as viewed by the recent site inspection. According to the Polk Street Directories from the late 1990s onward, the owners did not rent out one of the units and may have been using the whole house. A floor plan that shows the current 2-unit layout is attached to your staff report. The zoning ordinance requires 3 off-street parking spaces for a 2-unit building. The building currently has parking for 1 vehicle in front of the home. A condition for approval, as well as for the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, is that the required off-street parking shall be created. On-street parking along Eastern Avenue is at a premium. The property has adequate space to accommodate the required off-street parking behind the house. All driveways must be paved, and this has also been made a condition of approval. Neighborhood Services recently inspected the property and found numerous code violations that will need to be abated before a certificate of inspection can be issued. There was a significant amount of remodeling that was done illegally without building permits. Because the owner is a repeat offender, an administrative hearing has been scheduled for August 28th of 2018 for failing to obtain a building permit. City ordinance requires participation in the city's rental inspection program due to the nature and extent of the violations, whether this remains as a single-family home or as a 2-unit home. Under conditions that are suggested, if the zoning board desires to approve the variation of use, the following conditions would be included. 1, that all illegally installed items be removed and proper permits obtained. The permitted remodel of the property shall be inspected and approved, and a certificate of completion obtained from inspectional services. 2, proper fire separation between the units shall be installed. 3, that any existing violations from the recent Neighborhood Services inspection shall be repaired within 90 days of obtaining permits. 4, that an 18-foot by 20-foot paved parking area for the parking of 2 vehicles shall be created behind the house with access from York Avenue. 5, that off-street parking shall remain in the future. And 6, that the property shall not be expanded in the future. And 7, should the property be declared a public nuisance by the City Council, the variation of use is automatically revoked. And that concludes staff's report.
Okay, there's going to be an administrative hearing on August 28th.
Yes.
Do you want to hear this now, or do you want to wait till after that?
That is at your discretion, but as stated in the report, whether or not this is, these issues have to be taken care of. It's up to the zoning board if you want to hold up the request to put the proper zoning in place. They're simply right now seeking the variation of use to acknowledge the fact that there are presently 2 units.
So what we're doing today is just an incentive for them to proceed, is what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. They're kind of 2 separate matters. Your recommendation will go on to the city council, which would occur after the administrative hearing. So if those are not, then at the council level, it can certainly be tabled if there's a need to do that. But at this point, you're simply being asked for a recommendation regarding the 2 units.
I realize that, but with all of these violations, the illegal remodeling, all these other problems, I don't know if I'm willing to bring this up until some of these things have been resolved first.
I agree with you, Mr. Hennessy.
I'll leave it up to the board, whatever they want to do.
I agree with that. To wait until after, I would make that motion to table it until the next meeting. I would do that.
Until after the administrative hearing?
After the administrative hearing.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table this to the next meeting until after the administrative hearing has been held and some of these problems have been resolved. Call the roll.
Mr. Riggs?
Aye.
Mr. Ferguson?
Aye.
Mr. McCauley?
Aye.
Ms. Powers?
Aye.
Mr. Hennessy?
Aye. I suggest, you get in touch with the petitioner and work some of these damn things out.
And just for
Okay,
the
let's
record,
move
that
on.
next meeting would be September 20th at 2 p.m. in the same room.
What's next?
Mr. Chair, the final item under public hearings is petition number 2018-33. This request is withdrawn, but I'll just read for the record in case anyone is here. This was a variation of use petition to allow continuation of a 2-unit, which is an R3 use, in a 1 and 2 family use in an R2 single family zoning district located at 722 Francis Street. Again, that petition has been withdrawn.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is new business, not requiring a public hearing. We have no items. Following that is old business requiring a public hearing. We have no items. Following that is old business not requiring a public hearing on no items. And then under 9, the final item is just our general public comment section, and that is for anyone wishing or wanting to speak regarding non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to speak is entitled to speak for a maximum of 4 minutes. It is not a question and answer period. Is anyone here wanting to give public comment on anything? Seeing none? Motion
Okay,
is in
motion
order.
would be in order to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion is adjourned. So, meeting is adjourned.
Okay.